Hey everybody, Azrach here and welcome to my channel. Today we're looking at some of my Mattel DC action figure collection, and basically I'm going to look at all the characters and go through some similar characters or the same characters from other toy companies so that we can do a comparison. The driving factor basically is that I started collecting the DCUC action figure line, and I also fell in love with most of the Mattel stuff that they did before DCUC and some stuff that they did afterwards, like the DC Multiverse collection. So we're going to look at all the action figures that I have and also look at maybe Mafex or DC Icons or any other different lines that create similar characters and see what the differences are, and basically just go through the figures. So the first character we're looking at is this Batman action figure from DCUC. This is from Mattel, and Batman is possibly my favorite character of all time. This Batman action figure is very detailed and highly articulated for its time, and the head on this action figure is a more comic style head. It is a little bit flat, but it's a really good head sculpt nonetheless. The body is proportioned very well, but all the Mattel bucks were very proportional. There are some weird gapping issues like the shoulders here, and there are some scuff marks because this is an older figure. The joints are a little bit weird in today's terms, but they were pretty well articulated back in the day. So there's a few weird things happening on this body, but it's still a really good action figure nonetheless. Batman obviously has his oval bat symbol, which was more of the 90s kind of Batman style, and it's got the pellet instead of the pouches, so that's also pretty neat. But it's a really good action figure, and it's got a lot of good details, and basically it's painted well. Everything about it is pretty nostalgic and really nice. So along with the gray Batman, I also have the all black Batman with the yellow belt, which is really nice. It's like a really good paint combination, and it just makes the yellow stand out on Batman, so I really dig this look. It's the exact same action figure as this one here, but it's just all black, which is, the belt has a little bit of a different paint and the capes look the same as well. It's just a different Batman color scheme. So it's a pretty good Batman. It has everything that I mentioned for the first one, but it's a completely black stealth kind of look, which really works for Batman. So in talking about some comparable versions of this Batman in more contemporary terms, we've got the DC Icons Batman action figure on the left here. So it's got a pretty cool logo without the oval bat, which is like the upgrade that they did for Batman in the later kind of years. But there's a lot of good details here. The belt is a little bit different as well, and the action figure line is a pretty good action figure line. They did run a little bit shorter than the other action figures. That's probably why they didn't take off as well as they were expected to, but they were supposed to be DC's version of Marvel Legends, but then these figures, well, they ran a little bit shorter, so yeah, there wasn't a good uptake, but they've got a lot of good articulation, like the double jointed elbows and the double jointed knees, and a lot of details in the sculpting as well. The body sculpted really well, and the action figure looks pretty compact. This is one of the later DC Icons, so it doesn't stand too short, but then still with the DC Icons, they did run a little bit shorter. And possibly my favorite action figure line at the moment, we've got the Mafex action figures, and these action figures are amazing. So Batman here is from Batman Hush. It's a very classic looking Batman. Mafex is coming out with the Nightfall version of Batman, so it will look more like this Batman here, but they haven't solicited that yet, so they've only shown us some prototypes. So when that comes, that might be like the best classic version of Batman. But for now, for the pouch belt Batman with the no oval bat, basically just the bat symbol bat, this is a pretty amazing figure. If you can find this guy, he is going above retail because Mafex kind of sells out really quick, and once they sell out, you can't really buy them for retail price. But he is an awesome figure. If you can get him, this is definitely my favorite Batman figure in the 6-inch line at the moment. So next up, we're looking at the 90s version of Mullet Superman. So this is a DCUC Superman action figure, but obviously with the mullet head. So the details on the Superman are pretty nice. The hair actually has some blue shadings, which is a really nice touch. The face does look a little bit generic, but you can definitely tell it's Superman because of the hair, and the eyes and everything else painted really well. It's a lot less painting than what you'd see from figures today, but they're pretty nice. The S symbol is painted on. It's not like a etched on, sculpted on kind of piece. It's using a similar body to Batman, but it's a little bit smaller. If we take a quick look, Yeah, the Batman body does look a little bit more muscular, and well, I think they're the same body actually. It's probably just the paint throwing me off, but they look very similar in terms of the body sculpts. And the legs look similar as well. I had Batman standing a little bit more spread apart with his legs, but they look very similar on second thought. So with the Superman, there's a lot of good sculpting similar to all the buck bodies that they've used in the DCUC line. The paints are really vibrant and they really stand out, so that's really good. Superman's got the traditional belt, but they've only got 2 belt loops here, no belt loops other than 2 belt loops at the back here. And that's a really weird image, but we've got 2 other belt loops at the back here. So there are a few other ones they could have added, but unfortunately they did not. But it's a good looking Superman, and it reminds me of, I think, the Return of Superman kind of line where he had the longer hair. But yeah, it's more 90s Superman. So another thing to add is that they made Superman action figures before this as well, but the legs didn't close up as much, so they were like very widespread legs. And the other thing to note about this action figure is that the cape is more thicker. It's kind of less pliable in terms of material, but they've got the S on the back as well, which is nice. But yeah, the cape is a little bit hard to move around because it's more tough plastic and it's really thick. So that's like, I would really like to just swap out the capes to be more cloth capes, but yeah. So for the more contemporary versions of Superman, here we have on the lineup, in the extreme left, we've got the custom Superman that I created using the body from Mixmax. It's a custom head and it's not paint matched that well, but I do need to get that head sculpt changed. It's a good head sculpt, but it's just not paint matched. But it's a custom Superman that I made from scratch, so I am very much in love with it because I created it, but that's bias, so you guys don't have to feel the same. But it's a pretty good Superman, I think, in my opinion, with the trunks and more of the classic features. But I'm using the Man of Steel boots or the BVS boots for Superman's boots because they didn't have any alternatives back then. But yeah, I do have the new Man of Steel Superman Steelbox edition from from Mezco on pre-order, but that hasn't arrived yet. With the DC Icons action figure that I have in hand right now, it's a little bit smaller. As you can see, it runs quite a lot smaller. It's, I think, exactly 6 inches, and the other action figures are 6.3 to 6.5 inches. So these guys ran a bit short, and that's why it didn't really take off. They have the updated double hinged elbows and the double hinged knees, which is really nice. This Superman did not have a drop down leg, but the underwear is sculpted a little bit weird where there's a lot of gapping to possibly help with the articulation, but it's not the best articulated figure because the joints are all there, but they don't function as one would expect them to, so that's a little weird. And there's a lot of tension there because I bought this figure and I never really moved it, so there's that. But it's a good figure with a good look to it. The proportions are not that bad. The hands do look a little bit tiny, but the proportions aren't too horrible. But the figure in general is a little bit smaller, so that's why it didn't really take off. Here at the extreme end, we've got the Mafex Hush Superman with the regeneration suit Superman from Mafex as well. That's the head here, and everything else is the Hush Superman. I just wanted to change the head out so that it looked similar to this version of Superman, so that they were at least a little bit more similar. But I think it's a good head sculpt for the 90s version of Superman. But the Superman actually came with this head sculpt here, which makes him look more Jim Lee kind of Hush version of Superman. But yeah, it's a pretty good action figure. He's my favorite Superman action figure as well. I think I like the custom version that I made as well, but this is definitely my favorite action figure. So the thing I like about this action figure is that it has pinless joints, and the cape definitely adds a lot to the posability as well. The shoulder joints have a lot of additional range of motion, and the drop down hinges and the legs in general. It's a really good figure that has a lot of good articulation, and it's a definite looker, so it's definitely going to catch your eye in your shelf. So I think that's my favorite action figure at the moment for Superman, but we've got some good alternatives as well. So next up, we've got the Princess of Themyscira. We've got Wonder Woman or Diana Prince. I really dig this action figure because Wonder Woman is in her classic duds. So it's a little bit difficult to find a good Wonder Woman action figure. I don't think any company's made a really good one. McFarlane definitely hasn't tried yet, so we're still waiting for a good one from them. But for this Wonder Woman action figure, yeah, the eyes are a little bit rough in terms of painting because they're not centered, And the tiara is pretty nice. It's sculpted. The hair is flowy, really nice. It's got some blue highlights on it as well, which is very, very nice. For some reason, I really find the fingers to be a little bit weird because they're very abruptly cut off. Yeah, it just looks a little bit weird, but it's an old figure, so it's not that bad. There's a lot of bad flashing going on the shoulders, and there's a lot of paint rub, but yeah, I bought it used, so I couldn't really control that. It was already like that when I got it. There's a lot of good sculpting details, like the chest symbol on Wonder Woman's chest, her stars on her trunks, and the boots are very classic and very nicely done, and the lasso is there as well. She also came with a shield that I do not know where it is, and this weapon, which is a mace with the Wonder Woman like bird eagle symbol engraved. I don't know, it's weird, but it's there, and I think overall it's a pretty good Wonder Woman for the time. So in terms of alternatives, I have two other Wonder Woman action figures. I do have the movie version of Wonder Woman from Mafex and Mezco as well, but I didn't want to compare movie versions. This is more the comic look of the action figure, so I'm just going with the comic theme here. But on the left here, we've got the Mezco Wonder Woman. This is more recent. I think this is the rebirth version of Wonder Woman, so it's more contemporary with a lot of good details. The thighs are absolutely amazing. There's very little in terms of articulation gaps. That's really nice. There's a lot of good details. The body is completely plastic, and the armor here is plastic as well. So this is a completely plastic action figure other than the skirt, which is really nice. So you don't have to worry about damaging the figure too much while posing it around. The hair has so much volume. It's really well done. It's a really nice hair. It's a really good face paint as well. It just makes Wonder Woman really pop out. She looks so powerful in this kind of iteration. It's really nice. The boots have a lot more details. Mezco is known for putting in details sometimes when it's not necessary for this, but for this Wonder Woman, they do look nice. Single jointed elbows, unfortunately, but yeah, overall it's a really good Wonder Woman action figure, and it comes with a lot of accessories and different swap out parts. So I'm really, really digging this Wonder Woman. We also have the DC Icons version of Wonder Woman. I think this is also there goes Mezco Wonder Woman. I think this is the rebirth version of Wonder Woman as well. So she's got the thigh strap here. She's got the more shorter boots. Like with the Mezco, it's a really long boot that covers the knee. With the DCUC, it's a shorter boot as well, but it's more classic. But this one has a lot more details on it. And the boot profile is pretty small, so it doesn't cover that much space on the ground, so it's a little bit more difficult to stand up, this Wonder Woman. But she's got a lot of good details. The armor is really nice, double jointed elbows, swivel at the biceps here as well, and she has a backpack thing that you can take on and also off as well. So basically it's to hold this thing if you want to stow it on her back. And she's also got like a gauntlet thing that you can store this onto. It's a separate piece that comes off, and you can basically move it around wherever you want. It's got that piece or that cavity here that allows you to swap things around. But yeah, it's a pretty good Wonder Woman action figure, and it's not the most classic kind of iteration, but I still really like this Wonder Woman. She is a bit tall for DC Icons, but I think she works pretty well with other action figure lines. Next up, we've got the Hal Jordan version of Green Lantern, and there's a pretty cool action figure. I really like the pearlescent colors on the chest. The Green Lantern symbol on the chest also looks really, really neat. The head sculpt is more flat head sculpt again, but it's very consistent with the comic books of the time. And it's a really good action figure. I think overall there's a lot of good details. It looks like the body has been swapped over now, so it's a smaller, leaner kind of body. If you look at the details here, they do look a little bit different. This doesn't have as much details, and it does look like a slimmer kind of body, which works really well for Green Lantern. And yeah, there's a lot of good details, and the painting is done pretty nicely on the whole figure. The head for my action figure is a little bit loose, but yeah, it's a pretty good action figure. Lots of good sculpted details, a lot of good musculature on the back as well. There's the legal details on the butt here. But yeah, quite a nice action figure, and I really, really like this Green Lantern action figure. Possibly my favorite Green Lantern action figure in my collection. For some alternate versions for this Green Lantern, on the left here, we've got the Kyle Rayner version of Green Lantern, and it's updated double jointed system from Mattel, but it's basically a new figure entirely because it's a different character, Kyle Rayner. I don't have any other Green Lantern Hal Jordans from Mattel, so I'm just basically using him for comparison, but it's a really good figure. This one, I really like the articulation scheme more than this figure here, but Hal Jordan is a lot more my Green Lantern. Kyle Rayner, I don't know too much about. I've seen him in some comic panels, but I haven't followed him as closely as Hal Jordan, so not my favorite Green Lantern, but the joints and the updated articulation is definitely nice. The waist that's snatched again looks a little bit weird. I really like that in terms of the waist and the proportions more. This just looks like the thighs and the calves start out to be too small, and then they just basically become bubbles, and then they go into that small mode again. So it's a little bit weird, a little bit jarring, but it's a good action figure. The double jointed knees definitely help with posability. It affords a little bit more in terms of posability, and the thigh cut up top here rather than at the bottom here does help the aesthetics a little bit as well. But Hal Jordan being my Green Lantern, this figure I definitely prefer more. So this figure I prefer more. And I also have the Mezco version of Hal Jordan Green Lantern. So Mezco obviously adds a lot of their own details, which I'm not a big fan of, especially for Hal Jordan. He wears more of a simpler kind of costume when he's Hal Jordan or Green Lantern. I think when he's Parallax, he does have a little bit more details going on. But for Green Lantern Hal Jordan, I definitely would have wanted it to be more, less detailed. But it's a good figure nonetheless. I mean, the additional sculpted parts to the gloves and gauntlets and the boots kind of look a little bit weird. The boots being white instead of green is also a little bit weird. And there's a whole bunch of panel works and line working on the entire figure, which is not my cup of tea. So this is not my favorite Green Lantern action figure, but it's got a really good head sculpt. So if you wanted to do customs, you could definitely come up with a really good Green Lantern using this head sculpt and possibly this body as well. So to round out my version of the initial Justice League, I also have the Flash action figure. And it's a pretty cool action figure. I really dig the colors and the slimmer body. I think this is using the Green Lantern kind of body as well. The head sculpt is really well done, and the ear wings are a separate piece that are painted yellow, which adds a lot to the dimensions of the head. The head, again, is a little bit flat, but there's a lot of good details. The musculature on the body is pretty nice. There's a lot of paint work all around. There's not much sculpt work other than the base bulk body. But it's a good Flash action figure. The Flash action figure, I bought him loose, so I don't have other swappable hands, but I don't think he came with swappable hands. Running hands would have been like awesome for the Flash. The boots also have these additional sculpted parts, which are separate parts that are added on later. So it's a pretty good action figure in terms of just being Flash, and captures like the classic Flash vibes quite a bit. So I really dig it, but there's not much in terms of sculpting. It's just all paint. So this one's a very nice comparison because it's very like for like. The Flash action figure we have here is the DC Icons Flash. This Flash action figure does run a little bit shorter in comparison to the DCUC action figures and also any other 6-inch line action figure, possibly other than SH Figure Arts. But it's a really good Flash action figure. The chest is actually sculpted, the head wings on the head, and basically all the details on the face, really well done. The face isn't as flat as that figure there. Double joint in the elbows and the knees, swappable hands, a lot of sculpt details everywhere. So that's sculpted here as well. The gauntlet parts are sculpted as well. The boots are completely separate parts that swivel around, and they have the wings as well. So it's a really nice action figure. It's definitely an upgrade from the DCUC version. The only issue is it runs a little bit small, and yeah, if that figure was a little bit bigger, that would have been hands down the best 6-inch action figure for Flash. But unfortunately, it does run a little bit short. So DCUC Flash, in terms of scale with other action figure lines, works better. But both action figures really nice. I really like this action figure in terms of the sculpt work, the articulation, and everything else. But DCUC, it just holds a place in the nostalgic part of the heart. So next we've got a Justice Society member. It's not a core Justice League member, but I think in some Justice League teams he has been featured. But this is the Hawkman action figure from DCUC. The wings are detailed to the nines. They're sculpted so well. They've got articulation as well, but they're sculpted really, really nicely. There's a lot of good details. The body is a little bit bigger, it looks like, compared to the other action figures. Let's compare him to Batman. I'm not sure if the body is that much bigger. All right, so it looks like the body is the same as Batman with the addition of more anatomy, if you can see there. But yeah, it looks like the same body as Batman, but Hawkman does look a little bit bigger, possibly because of the harness that's going across his chest. He comes with 2 weapons as well. He comes with sculpted details on his wrist and his gloves to basically add some bandages to him, which is really nice. There's a lot of good sculpt work going on in his shin, his upper knee, lower knee, and also his boots, so that's really nice. But it's a really good Hawkman action figure. The only issue is he's grinning all the time, which is not the best, but it's a really good action figure. Unfortunately, Hawkman, I do not have any other versions of Hawkman action figures. I don't think I have the DC Multiverse version from McFarlane either, so this is the only Hawkman action figure I have. Now, another action figure I have from the DCUC line is this Firestorm action figure. I don't have any other Firestorm, so there will be no comparisons. But it's a really good action figure. There's a lot of good details, like there's a lot of good sculpted details on this action figure. The head and the translucent hair is pretty nice. The head's painted really well as well, and it's a little bit more dimensional than the other heads from DCUC. The body is pretty much the same as Batman, and they share, I think, most of the same sculpt in terms of just the base body, but with Firestorm, there is the addition of these kind of flappy parts here. The arms are more cloth-like simulated sculpt, which is really nice, and the gloves run all the way to the elbows, which is a little bit weird. They could have done that a little bit differently, but articulation would have been more difficult, so I understand why they did that. Belt is pretty plain with just a dot of red in the middle. The pants are all painted on. There's like not much sculpt in the leg area. But yeah, with the torso being completely redone, that's pretty good. Like especially with the arms and also the sculpted on parts here, which is really nice. But it's a good action figure. It's really a good character to have unique sculpt on. So I don't have any other Firestorm action figures, but it's a really good Firestorm action figure to have. So that is all the heroes that I have in my DCUC collection or the Mattel collection. But now on to the bad guys. And first off, we're starting off with Deathstroke. So this Deathstroke action figure is really nice, almost completely resculpted. There's a lot of parts that have new molds made for them. So it's a really good action figure with a lot of good details. And I really am lucky to have this action figure in my collection. I did get him on eBay. I didn't pay too much, but yeah, it's a pretty good action figure. There's a lot of weapons and accessories that come with the figure as well, but overall it's a good Deathstroke action figure. It's reusing some of the parts with additional sculpt to it, but yeah, it's still done really well. For some more contemporary comparisons, on the left here we've got the Mezco Deathstroke, which is a really good action figure with a lot of cloth goods. But the cloth goods on this figure, they don't seem like you're going to ruin it that easily because they're a little bit more loose and they're more plain. They don't have any unnecessary details to them, so they're going to definitely last. But there's a lot of additional details to the boots and the gauntlets and basically all the other pauldrons and stuff like that. So Mezco do add some details to the action figures, but it's a really nice action figure. For Deathstroke, it works. And there's a lot of good accessories, details, articulation, everything for this figure, which is really nice. And I really like this Deathstroke. We also have the DC Icons Deathstroke. I bought him loose, so I only have like 2 swords for him. But I don't think the swords are part of Deathstroke anyway. So it's just like I don't have any accessories for him. But it's a really nice Deathstroke action figure. The bandolier that's across his chest is really nice. He's got a neck thing as well. I never noticed that before. He's got like a neck, I don't know what that is. He's got a lot of scale details everywhere. There's a grenade on his utility belt with some pouches and the buckle as well. He's got a thigh strap with a gun holster attached without the gun, obviously, because I don't have all the accessories. A lot of good sculpt work and a lot of good details. Yeah, this is a really good action figure. DC Icons for what they did like amazing things, but unfortunately they were running a bit smaller than the other 6-inch action figures, and yeah, that's why they were discontinued. But they're doing some awesome work, to be honest, so I really wish that they would have continued, because that would have been a really good line to complement Mephix if the scales were more aligned. So now we have the Darkseid action figure. This is an action figure that I never really warmed up to because of its really wonky proportions. It's a really small Darkseid action figure. Comparing him to Batman, he is just a little bit taller than Batman, so Darkseid typically is depicted to be a lot bigger. But with this Darkseid, the head sculpt is very nice. The thing that I don't like about this Darkseid is the huge shoulder gauntlets, or the shoulder guards. The huge shoulder guards look really weird and out of proportion. I think there's a new 52 version of Darkseid, and Darkseid should be a lot bigger in the new 52 as well. So this action figure overall just doesn't work. There's a lot of good sculpting details all over the figure, but it just is a lot too small. This is basically the Masters of the Universe Classics Buck, which is why it's a little bit bigger than the other action figures. But it's not a good Darkseid action figure. The face is really nice, but the body is way too small. So for a more contemporary comparison, this Darkseid from Mezco is definitely worlds better, because he is a much bigger Darkseid. He's got that stern face, but he's also got a face that is easily replaceable. So he's got that very scary looking thing going on underneath, which is basically the light up feature. But you can change his faceplates and give him different expressions and things like that. I do not have everything laid out in front of me, but I just have the figure at the moment, so we'll look at that. With this Darkseid, there's a lot of good sculpting details going on. I think he's made of polystone as well. So this is like a stone kind of material, not just action figure plastic. At least that's what I believe it is. The cloth goods is also really well done, really nicely detailed and painted. So yeah, like Mezco, with Mezco, like they always do, they like added a bunch of details to the belt, but this is like a metal belt that there's a mother box that attaches magnetically as well. He's got very high boots. I think this is more the DC Justice League Unlimited version of Darkseid. It looks more like that Darkseid, because Darkseid had really high boots in that show. But yeah, lots of good details, lots of heft and width to Darkseid, so he does look a little bit more menacing than our small Darkseid from DCUC here. But yeah, definitely my favorite Darkseid in my collection at the moment, this guy, and he's a really good action figure. I also have the leader of Warworlds in my collection. This is the Mongol action figure. I'm not sure if this is from DCUC or DC Superheroes, but this is a pretty good Mongol action figure. There's a lot of sculpted details everywhere on this action figure, like that piece here. All of this is sculpted. The head looks so gnarly and so awesome. There's a whole bunch of sculpted details on the head as well. The neck has lines going across that is sculpted. This part, the black line here, is sculpted. This rivet here is sculpted. There's a whole bunch of sculpted details here. The bicep has some sculpted details underneath as well. The gauntlet is sculpted. 3 fingers on his hands, which is completely new sculpt. The belt is sculpted with a lot of awesome details. That is so awesome with the details. The back is completely sculpted. The thighs have holsters that are sculpted. A lot of sculpted details everywhere. This is such a cool figure. So there's a lot of sculpt on this figure, and I really like this figure. The only thing that I don't like about this figure is that he is also not that big. He's like Darkseid, a little bit taller than Darkseid. So definitely in terms of height, he could have been a little bit bigger. I think for DC icons, he compares pretty well, but for DCUC, he is not the tallest figure, but I think you can work around with it. He's still taller than the other figures, so it's not that bad. But with the details and the sculpting, this is so much in there, and it's sculpted for this particular figure, so it's a really good value action figure. Now this figure is also one of my recent purchases, and this is the Etrigan action figure from DCUC. Absolutely amazing action figure. And the reason I like it so much is because there is sculpt and sculpted details to the action figure, but it's also simple where it needs to be. So the torso and the shirt is more plain and just a body sculpt, but the legs have a lot more details because the actual skin similar to the legs. We've got the hands with a lot of details as well, and it's very comic accurate in terms of looking like Etrigan. The head sculpt is amazing. The thing I don't like about the head sculpt is the wash within that crevice here. It just makes it look like he's got a third eye that's closed, something like that, which is a little bit weird, but the head sculpt is so amazing. And I found a 3D head sculpt that I might print out and swap for this guy, but it's a really good action figure, and he does have a little bit of height to him as well. So if you compare him to Batman, for Etrigan, it's a really good height. So it's a really good action figure, and it's very detailed and very good representation of Etrigan, so I really like this. Continuing on with the big figs, we've got Calabac here, which is an awesome action figure. Again, lots of sculpted details. This is one of Jack Kirby's creations, so you can see all the Jack Kirby kind of details going on the action figure. The furry hand on one side, which is not clothed, and the other side, everything is clothed. It just represents clothing so much better. The really awesome looking hunched head and hunched back for this Calabac, really nice. The gorilla arms, the short legs, the proportions are really well done. Comes with a lot of details on the gauntlets, and there's details on his belt as well. The coloring is really nice. It's just a really good action figure overall. And although he is crouching a little bit and a little bit difficult to stand, he is still taller than the other action figures. So if he was standing up straight, he would definitely be a lot taller than Batman, but this still works because he is crouching and he does look massive, not just in terms of height, but also width. So it's a really good action figure of Calabac. Unfortunately, I do not have the McFarlane DC Multiverse Calabac action figure. I have him on pre-order, but once I do get him, maybe I'll do a review or a comparison of both figures. But at the moment, I only have this Calabac action figure, and it's an awesome action figure. And last but not least, this is a more recent action figure of Doomsday. It's a Collect and Connect Doomsday from, I think, the DC Multiverse line, which is way after the DCUC line. But it's still got all the articulations from DCUC, so I included it in this video. But it's a really good Doomsday action figure. A lot of good details. Everything is pretty amazing. Like, a lot of accurate details for Doomsday, a lot of spikes coming out from his biceps, from his everywhere basically, from his hand here. Everything's painted. Well, it's not painted the best, but everything is at least painted. The head sculpt looks so gnarly and so awesome. There's a lot of horns and basically spikes, bone protrusions coming out everywhere. He's got really nice work done to his pants. He's got some added details to his thighs as well. The belt looks alright. I think, is this when he came out of his containment suit? I'm not entirely sure, but there's a lot of good details. And this action figure is big. He's not just tall, he's big. If you compare him to Batman, Doomsday is crouching at the moment and he's still that big. So if you stand him up completely straight, this Doomsday should be towering over everybody else. So that's incredible. That's a really good action figure. And because it's one of the later Collect and Connect action figures, I was actually able to get him for retail price because it was released when I was actually collecting action figures, and all the other action figures were released before, so I wasn't able to collect them when they were initially released, but I'm really happy I got this Doomsday action figure. So there you have it, guys, just a quick rundown of all the DCUC action figures I have in my collection. It's still a growing collection. I started collecting them not too long ago, so I'm still looking to add to my DCUC collection, so hopefully I get my hands on more of these action figures because I absolutely love them. They're very nostalgic and bring that kind of nostalgic feel every time I look at them. So they're really good eye-catching action figures on the shelf as well because of the varied colors and the sheer variety of action figures. I'm also hoping that some of these characters will be picked up by Mafex. Wonder Woman definitely needs a very updated, revised version of Wonder Woman. We don't have any at the moment. Yeah, there are some Wonder Woman action figures, but they're not that plentiful and not that good. So hopefully we get some good Wonder Woman action figures. Deathstroke would be another one that would be awesome if we get him revamped in the Mafex style. Flash, Green Lantern as well. But these are amazing action figures that I'm really happy that I have, and I'm looking to collect more. With DCUC, they do tend to get very expensive because they're older action figures, and some action figures like Giganta are like $300-400, which is insane. But hopefully I get my hands on some of the other action figures from DCUC as well. Hopefully I get to complete my Justice League as well, because I'm missing a Martian Manhunter and a Hawkgirl. So I'll definitely try to complete those. But I'm really happy with these action figures, and I'm really happy with the contemporary alternates we have. So if you enjoyed this video, if you want to look at other videos in my channel, please feel free to do so. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you have anything to discuss with me, please leave them down in the comment section below. If you want to support my channel, please subscribe using the link below. And if you want to buy a diorama that's similar to this one, I have some affiliate links in the description box below. So if you use that link, it will give me a little bit of kickback and help the channel. But other than that, thank you so much for watching.